Hello and welcome to the English Speaking Studio. I'm Jack, your co-host.
And I'm Lucy.
We're going to be looking at American job interview culture. I thought it was super insightful. She breaks down this whole mock interview, and she points out all these little things that I think a lot of people wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, and especially if you're not from the U.S., like those cultural nuances can really trip you up. You know what I mean?
For sure. Like, I never realized how important small talk is in an American interview. Like, I always thought it was just, a formality.
Yeah, no, totally. But she really emphasizes that in the U.S. It's more than just, exchanging pleasantries. It's about building rapport.
Yeah. Like showing that you can connect with the interviewer on a personal level.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about demonstrating those interpersonal skills that are so valued in American workplaces.
Okay, that makes total sense. Actually, you know what? I remember this one interview I had where we ended up chatting about our favorite coffee shops in the area for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And honestly, it just completely eased the tension. It felt so much less like an interrogation and more like, just a conversation with a fellow human being.
Yeah, and that's kind of the goal, right? You want the interviewer to see you as someone they could actually see themselves working with day in and day out.
Oh, absolutely. Like someone you could actually grab a coffee with.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, you can actually practice that small talk even on your own, just to kind of boost your confidence.
That's a good tip. Okay, so beyond the small talk, Rachel's English also has some really interesting advice on how to handle those classic interview questions, like tell me about yourself or what's your greatest weakness?
Yeah, those ones that make you want to have like a perfectly rehearsed script.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But she actually cautions against that.
Yeah, instead of memorizing answers,
Yeah?
she suggests, having frameworks for your responses. Yeah, so it's less about, reciting a pre-written speech and more about being able to articulate your experiences and skills in a clear and concise way.
I see. So it's more about having a mental roadmap instead of a word-for-word script.
Exactly, which is a skill that's helpful in so many situations, not just job interviews.
Totally. Yeah. And she gives a great example of how to answer the greatest weakness question. And I love how she doesn't just list a weakness, she turns it into a story of self-improvement.
Right, like she talks about being nervous about public speaking, but then she talks about how she's actively working on it, joining Toastmasters and things like that.
Right. It's like she's saying, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'm willing to learn and grow, which is so much more relatable than pretending to have it all figured out.
Exactly. It shows self-awareness and a commitment to growth, which are really important qualities in American workplaces.
Okay. So we've talked about small talk and we've talked about, those classic interview questions. But Rachel's English also goes into detail about something that I think a lot of people overlook, which is nonverbal communication.
Oh, yeah, like body language and stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like your handshake, your posture, your facial expressions, all of that sends a message.
And in American culture, those nonverbal cues can be super important.
So what are some of the key things she highlights?
Well, she talks about the importance of a firm handshake, making direct eye contact, having a genuine smile. All of those things project confidence and engagement.
Right. It's like those subtle things can really make a difference.
Yeah. She specifically mentions sitting upright and leaning in slightly when you're listening during the interview.
Interesting. Like that shows that you're present and engaged.
Exactly.
Really makes you think about how much we communicate without even realizing it.
It's true. And another interesting point she brings up is the use of humor in interviews.
Oh, yeah. That can be tricky. I once tried to make a joke in an interview, and it just completely flopped.
Oof. Yeah, it's definitely a tightrope walk. Humor can be a great way to break the ice, especially in American culture where being able to connect on a personal level is so important. But if it's not done well, it can really backfire.
Yeah. You don't want to seem unprofessional.
Right. But she gives this great example in the video. When she's asked about her greatest weakness, she jokes chocolate.
I love that. It's so lighthearted. And it works because it feels authentic.
Exactly. And it shows a little bit of her personality without being inappropriate or trying too hard.
Right. It's all about finding that balance between, showcasing your skills and experience,
Right.
but also letting your personality shine through.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've talked about small talk, body language, humor.
Yeah.
But there's another crucial aspect that Rachel's English emphasizes.
Right.
And that's asking thoughtful questions as the interviewee.
Yeah, like having good questions for the interviewer.
Exactly. Because it shows that you've done your research and that you're genuinely interested in the role in the company.
Yeah.
Which is really important in American culture.
Yeah, it shows that you're not just there for any job. You're specifically interested in this opportunity.
Right. And she asks this amazing question in the video. It's like, Imagine in a year, this hire has exceeded expectations. What did they do?
Oh, I love that question because it forces the interviewer to think about what success actually looks like in that role.
And it gives you such valuable insight into the company's priorities.
Right. It's so much more insightful than just asking about, the day-to-day tasks.
Yeah. And it also subtly shifts the focus from what the company can do for you to what you can do for the company.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's like you're already thinking about making a positive impact, which is a message that resonates in American workplaces.
Definitely. It shows initiative and a proactive mindset,
Mm.
which are highly valued traits in American culture.
So it's not just about asking the right questions, though, right? It's also about actively listening to the answers.
Oh, absolutely. Active listening is crucial. It shows respect and engagement. And it also allows you to pick up on those subtle cues that can reveal so much about the company culture and whether it's truly a good fit for you.
Right. It's like you're gathering information not just about the job, but about the whole work environment.
Exactly. And, that brings us to something really interesting that Rachel's English demonstrates in the video, the art of reading between the lines.
Oh, yeah. Like being able to decipher those unspoken messages and hints.
Right, because sometimes what's not said can be just as important as what is said, especially in an American interview setting.
Okay. So how does she do that in the video?
Well, she picks up on this seemingly casual comment about high turnover in the position. And instead of just letting it slide, she dives right in and asks some really pointed questions about the reasons behind it.
Wow. So she's not afraid to ask the tough questions.
Nope. And that's important because it shows that you're not just blindly accepting everything you're told. You're actually thinking critically about what it would be like to work there.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Hmm.
It's not just about giving the right answers. It's about being observant, asking the right questions, and really understanding the whole context of the interview.
Exactly. It's about approaching the interview as a two-way conversation where both sides are trying to figure out if it's a good fit.
I like that. And I think that's a great place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part, but there's still so much more to unpack from Rachel's English's insights.
Yeah. It's like she's saying, okay, here's what I'm seeing, and I'm not afraid to ask about it.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and showing that you're really thinking critically about the opportunity.
Okay. So we talked a lot about the importance of asking questions, but let's go back to body language for a second, because I think that's another area where those cultural differences can really come into play.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What we consider to be good body language in one culture might be totally different in another.
Right. And Rachel's English really breaks down how to use body language effectively in an American interview.
Like she's super conscious of her own body language in the video.
Yeah. It's actually kind of fascinating to watch. Like she analyzes everything from her handshake to her posture.
Yeah. And it's not just about making a good impression. It's also about, feeling more confident and present in the moment. Okay, so let's break it down. What are some of the specific things she does with her body language?
Well, first off, she talks about the handshake, which is often the first physical contact you have with the interviewer.
Right. It's like that initial moment where you're trying to make a good first impression.
Exactly. And she emphasizes the importance of a firm, confident handshake.
Okay. But not like a bone-crushing grip.
No, definitely not. It's more about conveying a sense of energy and engagement.
Okay. So firm, but not too firm.
Got it.
Got it. What else?
Well, she also talks about posture, like sitting up straight with your shoulders back.
So projecting an image of alertness and confidence.
Exactly. And I think that actually helps you feel more confident too.
Yeah.
When you're slouching, you tend to feel less energetic and engaged.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's like your body language can actually affect your mental state.
Right. And then she also talks about facial expressions, like
Yeah.
making eye contact, smiling, genuinely, nodding your head to show that you're listening.
Oh, yeah. I remember she talks about this thing called mirroring.
Yes. Where you subtly mimic the interviewer's body language.
It's like a way to build rapport and create a sense of connection.
Exactly. And it's something you can do consciously, but you have to be careful not to overdo it.
Right. You don't want to come across as fake or creepy.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance between, being aware of your body language and still being authentic.
Okay. So we've talked about small talk. We've talked about asking questions. We talked about body language.
Yeah.
And now I want to bring up another element that I think would be really tricky to navigate in an interview. Humor.
Oh, yeah. That one can be tough,
Yeah.
because humor is so subjective. What one person finds funny, another person might find offensive.
Right. And in an interview setting, you definitely don't want to say anything that could be misconstrued.
Yeah, it's a high-risk, high-reward situation.
But I do think that humor can be a really powerful tool if it's used effectively.
Oh, absolutely. Like, if you can make the interviewer laugh genuinely,
Mhm.
it can really help to break the ice and build rapport.
And it shows that you're, a human being with a personality, not just a robot reciting your resume.
Right. But the key is to use humor sparingly and appropriately.
So how does Rachel's English handle humor in the mock interview?
Well, she actually makes a joke when she's asked about her greatest weakness.
Really? What did she say?
She says, chocolate.
Ah, I love that. It's so simple and self-deprecating.
And it works because it doesn't feel forced. It feels like a natural part of the conversation.
Exactly. It's not like she's trying to tell a stand-up routine.
Right. It's just a little moment of levity that helps to lighten the mood.
I think that's a great example of how to use humor effectively in an American interview. It's subtle, it's relevant, and it shows that you're able to connect with the interviewer on a personal level.
Exactly. It's not about being the funniest person in the room. It's about showing that you have a sense of humor and that you're comfortable enough to let your personality shine through.
Okay, so we've talked about small talk body language, asking questions, humor. Is there anything else we should be aware of when it comes to American job interview culture?
Well, one thing that Rachel's English emphasizes is the importance of being prepared to answer questions about your salary expectations.
Oh, yeah. That's always a tough one.
It is. It can feel really awkward to talk about money, especially in a job interview setting.
Right, but it's something that you need to be prepared to discuss.
Exactly. And she gives some really helpful tips on how to handle those questions gracefully and professionally.
Like what kind of tips?
Well, she suggests doing your research beforehand so you know what the average salary range is for that position in your area.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're not going in blind.
Right. And she also suggests framing your answer in terms of your value to the company.
Oh, that's interesting. So instead of just saying, I want to make X amount of money, you're saying, I believe my skills and experience are worth X amount of money.
Exactly. It's a subtle shift, but it can
Yeah.
make a big difference.
Okay. So be prepared to talk about salary expectations and frame your answer in terms of your value. Got it. What else?
Well, another thing that she mentions is the importance of following up after the interview.
Oh, yeah. That's always a good idea.
It is. It shows that you're still interested in the position. And it gives you a chance to reiterate your qualifications and thank the interviewer for their time.
So what's the best way to follow up?
Well, she recommends sending a thank you note within 24 hours of the interview.
Okay, so a handwritten note or an email?
Either one is fine, but an email is usually faster and more efficient.
Right, because you want to make sure the interviewer remembers you while the interview is still fresh in their mind.
Exactly. And in the thank you night, you can briefly summarize your qualifications, highlight your key strengths, and express your enthusiasm for the opportunity.
Okay, so it's like a final opportunity to sell yourself.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this second part. We talked about body language, humor, salary expectations, following up. What else did we miss?
Well, I think we've touched on most of the key points.
Yeah.
But there is one more thing that I think is worth mentioning, and that's the importance of being yourself.
Oh, yeah. Like not trying to be someone you're not.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, the interviewer is trying to get a sense of who you are as a person and whether you would be a good fit for their team.
Right. It's not just about having the right qualifications. It's also about having the right personality and attitude.
Exactly. And if you're trying to be someone you're not, it's going to show.
So be yourself, be
Yeah.
authentic,
Yeah.
and let your personality shine through.
That's the best advice anyone can give you.
I think so too. And I think that's a good place to pause for now. But we'll be back soon with the final part of this deep dive into American job interview culture.
It's so important, right? You want to make sure you're a good fit for the company culture and that you're going to be happy working there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so where were we? Oh, yeah. Reading between the lines. Like, how do you actually do that in an interview?
Well, it's about being observant, paying attention to those subtle cues that might give you more information than what the interviewer is actually saying.
Okay, so give me an example.
Remember how Rachel's English picked up on that comment about high turnover in the position?
Oh, yeah.
Like it was just a passing remark. But she really honed in on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that could be a red flag, like why are so many people leaving this position?
Right. It's like a clue that there might be something else going on.
And instead of just ignoring it, she asks some really direct questions about it.
Yeah. Like she's not afraid to dig a little deeper.
And that's important because it shows that you're not just taking everything at face value. You're actually thinking critically about the opportunity.
So it's not just about listening to what the interviewer is saying. It's also about paying attention to how they're saying it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like their tone of voice, their body language,
Yeah.
any hesitations or changes in their demeanor.
It's like you're reading between the lines to get a more complete picture of what it would be like to actually work there.
Right. And that can help you make a more informed decision about whether or not this is the right opportunity for you. You know, it's funny because we've talked about all these different aspects of American job interview culture, like the small talk, the nonverbal communication, the questions. But it all comes down to one thing, communication.
Yeah, like being able to communicate effectively is essential in any job interview. But it's especially important in American culture where directness and clarity are highly valued.
Right. It's about being able to articulate your thoughts and ideas clearly and concisely,
Yeah.
and also being able to listen attentively and understand what the other person is saying.
So it's not just about giving the right answers, it's about having a genuine conversation with the interviewer.
Yeah. Like showing that you're a real person with thoughts and feelings and ideas.
And that you're genuinely interested in the opportunity.
So I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that a successful job interview should feel less like an interrogation and more like a conversation.
I totally agree. And you know what? When you can achieve that,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah. It becomes less about trying to prove yourself and more about seeing if there's a genuine connection and a mutual fit.
Right. And who knows, you might even enjoy the process.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. So to all of you out there who are prepping for job interviews, remember to relax, be yourself, and try to have a real conversation with the interviewer. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive into American job interview culture. We hope you learned something new and that you'll feel more confident and prepared for your next interview.